Thought I'd make a quick video of this truck a friend and I built a couple years ago. There's just a few things we did that, just in case anybody's wondering, like just to prove that it can be done. It says V8 Ram 1500 on the side. Don't let that fool you. It's just the body. We took the body off of a half-ton two-door short box truck and we shortened the frame on a 2500. Like, I've seen some people do this where they actually just use the half-ton frame, but I didn't trust it because it's like paper thin metal in comparison. So yeah, we actually zip cut the frame in half, and the back part of the frame slides actually into the front, so we just had to re-drill some holes where the front spring shackle goes, and then bolt the frame back together, and then do quite a few measurements and hardly any welding at all, and then line everything back up. Yeah, you can see that it won't start right now just because the batteries are dead from it sitting forever, but you can plainly see the crappy old Cummins engine sitting under the hood. Not saying they're all crappy, just this one kind of is. Pretty impressive how it actually still runs and gets good fuel mileage, and it'll pull anything and go fast, but like its head gasket's blown in like a couple places. But this one's got 215 horse injectors, and someone screwed around with the fuel plate, and it's got an HX35 turbo, which with different delivery valves in the pump, it was hitting like over 45 pounds of boost, but I didn't want to blow the head right off. So I had to go pretty easy on the go pedal with that one. I'm not sure if you can really see very well, but the spring shackle up there, you can see there's bolts there, and on the back side, that's right where we cut the frame, that straight line you can see, and this back portion just slid forwards. So it slid forwards with the spring shackles. We had to torch off the old rivets and then just put bolts in, and there's more bolts on top too. And this tiny little rounded transition piece in behind the e-brake cable bracket, that was just tack welded on there, and then we used a flapper wheel to sand it down so it looks perfectly normal. The one thing we screwed up was one of the brackets for the fuel tank, so it's kind of got a bulge in it because the bracket didn't line up. And the truck was actually really beat. Like, I didn't know it was in such bad shape till we kept taking more stuff apart. Like, the rear diff kind of leaks everywhere, and the gears are kind of worn out because the pinion, one of the pinions was falling out. Or not the pinion, one of the shafts or the spider gears, there's a split pin that broke off, so the cross shaft was like coming out and hitting the ring gear, and then it would hit the pinion as it went around. But and the brakes, like the bleeders are all rusted in there, so you can't even bleed the rear brakes. But it still seems to stop fine. I don't know if it has a leveling kit or anything. Like, the suspension's the same height as when I got it, but it's got 35s on it, which clear easy. And one other thing we did to it was, you can see it's a 94 Dodge, normally has the vacuum lock front diff, but I got a ball joint front diff from an F350 Ford, and from the ball joints out it'll just fit. So it's just got manual locking hubs and real wheel bearings on it. So it's got the front brakes and everything from the Ford, and the outer axle shaft, and then for the diff lock portion that was from the Dodge, I just shimmed the little lock collar with washers, so it's just always locked in. And the transfer case is wrecked on this thing too. It was jumping out of gear in two-wheel drive. It was jumping into neutral because the splines were screwed up. So we ended up just pulling all the planetaries out of it and welding it in place, so there's no 4 low anymore, but it's just got 2 high and 4 high. I just was planning on putting a newer style NV 271 transfer case in it from a newer Dodge, but now I actually want to put a Ford 6-speed manual, or whatever it's called, the Ford's 6-speed that comes behind a 6-liter, the ZF6 is what it's called. I just keep forgetting everything, of course. But yeah, this truck, I assume it's probably got about 300, maybe a little more horsepower, and it's got like 5-inch exhaust, and as soon as the boost spools up, the smoke goes away, but you can make it smoke a hell of a lot off the line. So that's not really what I'm going for, but I just like the power and the speed. And it's got an NV 4500 in it that I rebuilt, and I put a bigger input shaft in it because I snapped the old input shaft off. I think this thing was abused quite a bit by previous owners. It's only got 288,000 kilometers on it, so like 200,000 miles ish or whatever that would be in the States. And yeah, I had the oil pan off and found some interesting stuff in there, like a bolt that must have gone through the gear train. So I don't know if what happened in the past, like there was no broken gears, so, and it does run fine, but I had the head off too, and the pistons have smacked the valves and stuff, and I know I didn't do that. So the 2 pistons have cracks in them. So I got a new block ready. I just need to bore it out, and then I want to make it about 600 horsepower, yeah, with a 6-speed Ford tranny in it and a better transfer case. And then I want to rebuild both diffs. So like it needs so much work. It needs at least 10 grand and tons of hours poured into it. But as it sits, you can drive it. You just got to top up the antifreeze once in a while and make sure your boost pressure doesn't get too high. It's a fairly comfortable truck to drive. Its shifting's not half as nice as a Ford tranny, but got a little sub that just fits in here in the back seat just perfectly with an amp. So it's got a good sound system, and it's got the boat rack on it, which really scores the ladies. And yeah, if anybody has any questions, just feel free to ask. Don't know if there's anything else cool done to it. It does have a 4,000 RPM kit, but it needs a new cam to actually make use of that, because it gets to 3,000 RPM and then just quits pulling. And when I bought it, it had a choke cable to turn it off and on because the solenoid for the fuel shut off was screwed up. I just bought one on eBay for like 30 bucks and it's been working fine for a couple of years. I know it's a lot of other places, like BD diesel, they're like 300 and something, so I didn't really feel like paying that much. But yeah, I've been driving the truck around, even though it's with the blown head gasket. It's been like that for quite a while, but right now I'm driving a dually Ford. This thing, the plan was to rebuild it, but now I'm working so much I don't know if I'll have time anytime soon. But yeah, I just need to figure out how my cylinder boring machine works, and then I've got some oversized pistons, it's 20 over, to put in there, and then some ARP rod bolts, and then the fancy custom aged ARP head studs, and I got a BD turbo to put on it. I want to put a bigger intake horn on it, maybe one of those dual ones. I don't know if it'll need a bigger intercooler or not, but also you can get a cable adjust fuel plate for it, so you can adjust it between like 180 to 600 horse, depending on how much smoke you want to put out or how fast you want to go. Just want to drive like a normal person and tow a trailer without some billowing black clouds out. You can just adjust it on the fly. But yeah, anyway, like I said, I think I've covered most things I've done to the truck. If anyone's got any questions, just feel free to ask. Oh, one last thing is, yeah, we had to shorten the drive shaft when we shortened the truck. So we just got a machinist to chop the drive shaft off for us and make it fit perfectly, and then we just welded a ring around it. We didn't feel like going to a drive shaft shop because we're pretty cheap. And the truck, we built it in 6 days. It used to be a white 2-door long box, and this truck was a half-ton. I towed it down south to a friend's place. It was like an 18-hour drive, and then 6 days later, this black truck, or the combination of the two, was ready to drive and drove all the way back up here. So made it about 3,000 kilometers with this drivetrain at least. I got back up here, and then the input shaft snapped off. So yeah, so then the truck sat for another month while I put a dual disc clutch in it and a bigger input shaft, and did a bunch of stuff, fixed oil leaks on the side of the engine, even though it still leaks like a sieve. Hopefully it won't when it gets a new engine put in it. But yeah, okay, I know I've said this a few times now, hopefully that covers everything. But yeah, got any questions, just leave a comment, I always reply to them. Anyway, good luck building your own creations.